the Reverend Courtney Geibert. Did I say that right? Geibert, sorry.
Here, we'll
The
do it
Reverend
again. We'll do it again. We can do it again, okay?
Okay. This is the Serrano Brothers Podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Serrano Brothers Podcast. Jeremy and I are on a mission right now to kind of unite our synod and get to know pastors in our synod better, and for everyone else to get to know pastors in our synod better. So today we have on Pastor Courtney Geibert. Courtney, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me and for your mission. I'm so excited to see how your work unites our synod.
Me too. Well, we'll see. I mean, our synod's so big, right? I think you and I, though our churches are only 30 minutes apart, or 30 miles apart, that's like an hour and 15 minutes in the Bay Area. And so it's hard to get around to other churches because it takes so much out of your day just to connect with other pastors. Yeah. Even in our conference is huge, and it's hard to see other pastors in our conference. So yeah. So hopefully people actually listening to this so we can get to know each other in each other's ministries. Yeah. So Courtney, we want to get to know you a little better. Though you and I have been in the same places, I don't really feel like I know you a whole lot. So can you just like tell us about yourself? Where are you from? What does your family look like?
Sure. So I am originally from Dayton, Ohio. So I'm a Midwest gal. And I went to college at Wartburg College, one of the ELCA schools in Iowa. And then after graduation, I moved to Nebraska, where I worked as a youth director. And then while working as a youth director, I felt the call to ordain ministry, and that was further supported by my pastor at the time. And so then I attended seminary at Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary in California. Now, this is my first call here on the peninsula in San Francisco, and I am just delighted to be here. And I have a curious cat who's wondering what is happening, Stella. And she was like, I want to be on camera. And I have two loving parents who live in Ohio, and I'm an only child. So I like to say I slowly made my way from Midwest to West Coast.
I have a deep affinity for anybody who went from youth ministry to ordained ministry. How long did you do youth ministry for?
So professionally 2 years, but I did youth ministry from the time I was in high school. So 10 years or so. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome. So you've been in it for a while now. That's cool. Yes. Do you have any favorite childhood memories?
Ooh. My favorite childhood memory was going to Lutheran Memorial Camp, which is now called Hope Woods or Hope Outdoor Woods it's near Columbus, Ohio. It's one of our Lutheran camps. I just found camping so beautiful, and I love the connection. So I went there every year as a camper, sometimes multiple weeks, because I just could not get enough of camping and being a part of a community.
What was it about the camp that brought you, that kind of sucked you in?
Mm-hmm. So my favorite is it had different names over the years, but it was essentially the outdoor roughing crew. So we would go, walk a mile away from the center of camp, and we would be on a homestead essentially, where we would, get our own water, make our own food, not shower for several days. And it was just so different from any other aspect of my life in which, I was disconnected from technology and really forced to be self-sufficient and build friendships right away with all the other campers.
That's really cool. That's a cool experience. Are you much of a camper now?
I would say yes. Yeah, I would say yes.
Very cool.
Did that transfer over into your like regular life? Like, do you can your own food and stuff now?
Oh,
Oh, okay.
no, but
You're not about that like that kind
no.
of stuff. Yeah. Okay.
That's awesome. That's cool. Okay, so what do you like currently? What do you like to do outside of being a pastor? Do you have any passions or hobbies that you really you love?
I love indoor cycling. I'm a member of a cycling gym nearby, and I love weightlifting and reading. Last year, I think I read like 120 books. This year, I'm a little bit behind. I'm only at like 70, but I love books, especially ones where it's like who done it kind of thing, or like we know she killed her husband, but why? So a lot of murder mystery books.
Do you buy the books? Do you do Kindle? Do you do library?
Library. I am a library gal through and through, and I have multiple library cards from different libraries across the US.
Uh,
That's cool.
do you ever
That's
use the
awesome.
Kindle? Do you ever check out books electronically?
Hmm. Yeah, so most of my books are ebooks from the library because then
I
I can
just
adjust the screen, I can make it the right size. It's great.
I just found out about this and I thought, holy cow, that is just so brilliant that you can check out an electronic book. I'm late to the game on some things in life, and this is one of them.
You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. You can make sure the font size is great for your eyes. It's fabulous. The light up if you're reading in dark at late at night, it's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all.
I find myself, I switched over in the morning. I am up before the sun, and so I use my iPad now to read scripture rather than like trying to like have my phone flashlight on the Bible, and I was just like, why am I doing this? I'm just going to use my iPad to read because it's backlit, right? And so that's been so much nicer.
Well, you know what really changed the game for me? A pop socket, which,
Oh,
they've been around for a while, but put it on the back of your iPad or your Kindle so then you can easily hold it in one hand and swipe,
yeah.
rather than like
Oh.
holding it. It's just more comfortable to hold. So highly
I,
recommend.
I use a ring, like
Yeah, same
one of those like
concept,
little rings. Yeah.
but do it
Uh,
on your iPad. Yeah.
that's smart. That's yeah.
Do you have a um okay, next question. Any like particular spiritual disciplines or practices that you like that you're currently you're that you like right now?
Obviously classic Lecto Divina, but
Hmm.
I love praying while I'm biking. So usually in my cycling class, there is about like a 4-minute song where everyone's quiet and they're just playing the music, and you're supposed to reflect or use that time as you wish. And the lights are off during it, so it's just mood wise, it's very focused. And so
Hmm.
I use that time every class to just pray and commune with God.
Oh, that's cool. Could you describe Lectio Divina for us?
Yeah, it's a form of listening to the word. There's different ways of doing Lectio Divina. Some people will read it several times and then see if there's a sentence or a word or phrase that jumps out to them, and hearing then for the Spirit's voice through the reading of the passage.
Well, thanks.
Courtney, I admire anybody who can work out hard and do that kind of prayer at the same time. Because when I work out hard, my prayers are usually, God, why am I doing this to myself? And so I just admire that you can make it spiritual, because mine is like, I hate this, so good for you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Uh, um, any other disciplines? Anything that you find yourself coming back to? Or is that kind of like your thing?
Those are my thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is there any other way that you would describe your like own personal spirituality?
So I am a theologian of the cross. It's
Mm.
how I talk about God with others. It's how I understand my relationship with God. I found theology of the cross during a really hard time in my life. and it gave me clarity in a way that I had never experienced before. And so I use that in guiding me in throughout my entire life.
For those
And how
people
would you
who,
describe that? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So I understand theology of the cross is that Christ walked through it with us, alongside us through the most horrific parts of our lives, and that we are not alone through those darkest points because Christ has experienced everything we've experienced.
Mm. And are there any books that have helped you understand the theology of the cross better for?
Um, Let me look that one up that I'm thinking of that really opened my eyes up to it. Um,
You said you're a reader, and so I just wanted to
yeah,
see.
I'm trying to remember which one that I really dove into.
I have a theology of the cross section in my bookshelf, which is like this section right here is my theology of the cross books right here.
Love
Yeah.
that.
Sometimes we have these terms that I think we as pastors use pretty frequently, but I think the lay folk don't really get what that is. So I'm glad that you explained that in such a coherent way.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So I really love The Cross and the Lynching Tree by James Cone.
Oh, yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
beautiful one. I feel like Andy Root wrote something on it at one point, but
I think it was called The Promise of Despair. Is
yes,
is the Andy Root book?
yes,
Ha-
that's
have you
it.
have you read Douglas John Hall's The Cross in Our Context?
Yes,
Uh, that's like, I feel like that's like theology of the cross for us right now.
right. So probably those three combined is a really beautiful way of hearing and understanding for me how
Mhm.
we can navigate our life with all of the despair around us. How do we find comfort and hope in Jesus?
Mm.
Right, because I think our common culture is to only ascribe to God when things are going well in our lives. And
Mhm.
so we typically think of all of the good things as blessings, right? But we all just preached on the Beatitudes, right? And the being persecuted isn't, it's called a blessing, but it's not what our common culture thinks of as a blessing. Um, and so I think the theology of the cross is so, I mean, it's so good, right? It's like one of the gifts we have as Lutherans to the rest of Christianity.
Mhm.
As we're talking about like like Lutherans, you seem to sound like you grew up Lutheran, right? Is that?
Yes. So
Yeah.
I grew up ELCA. I was born like 2 years after the forming of the ELCA. But before that, my grandfather was a Lutheran pastor. I can't remember which of the threads. I never met him, but my parents met in youth group. My dad was the pastor's kid, and they fell in love through youth group and church. So the church has
Wow.
been deeply part of our family story, and I'm just honored that I can carry it on. It is fun
You,
to look at my sermons versus my grandfather's sermons and how very different, I mean, context wise, but also theology, how we're both Lutheran, but it's very different over the years.
Mm.
how would you do you have any examples?
Yeah, most of my sermons focus a lot about grace for all and how we respond to that grace by welcoming all. Where his sermons, which, he was preaching in the 60s, were a lot more on how do you accept Jesus? How do you, that personal relationship with Jesus, which is great. And I say, okay, now how do we then take that further by caring for our neighbors?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting because that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting. because like that's when like the Jesus movement was, right? And that's when Billy Graham was really popular. So it makes a lot of sense to me that mainline churches and even progressive ones would kind of have that a little more integrated in because the context was so different, you know.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. You can see
That's
that conversation there with the sermons. Just as I think you could probably look at our sermons today, especially us progressive pastors, and see maybe how we're trying to push against the evangelical right Christian
Mhm.
nationalism.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So it's one thing to grow up Lutheran, but it's another thing to stay Lutheran. What keeps you staying in the Lutheran, the ELCA?
That's a fantastic question. I think the first one is mentors. I was very, very blessed to have incredible mentors who walked with me throughout high school. I mean, my youth director, Brian Jaster, who was my youth director in high school, is still a dear, dear mentor who checks
Mm,
in on me. And I think that care and um, community is really profoundly beautiful.
yeah.
And I stay Lutheran because it gives me the language and trust in Jesus that I haven't found anywhere else. I mean, the
Yeah.
idea of saint and sinner, the idea of grace abounds, um, the theology of the cross, it just makes sense to me and how I want to live out my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you touched on something, and it's a big gripe that I have with our fellow ordained clergy when they somehow diminish uh, lay youth ministers, and their ministry, like as if somehow there's like levels to this. And I got to just tell everybody, if you're a youth minister, you're doing the same job as a pastor.
Mhm.
I did it for 13 years as a youth minister. You're doing the same job. You're just not ordained. And so don't ever let a pastor tell you that you're somehow not doing the same kind of thing. It's a little different, but you're doing the same job. And so that he still checks in on you is so beautiful to me. And that's real, like that's ministry right there, right? Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you uh well let's talk about your congregation now. Let's talk about so you serve Messiah Lutheran Church in Redwood City. Uh
Yes.
how would you describe your congregation?
Well, where's Redwood City for everybody
Yeah,
who's
that's true.
where's Redwood
So
City?
we are on the San Francisco Peninsula, known as Silicon Valley. So when you think of Apple or Google, any tech, it's probably nearby. And we're probably, I would say, between 30 minutes to an hour outside of San Francisco, depending on where you're going in San Francisco. So we're just south of it. So my congregation is older. The average age, I would say, is about 75 or 80, with minus a few outliers. Um, my members start at like 50 years old and go up to, I think our oldest member is 102. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so it's an
That's
older
cool.
congregation and smaller congregation. We probably, including Zoom worship, probably worship 25 to 30 every
Hmm.
Sunday. Yeah. So they
Mhm.
are a small, tight-knit, older family church, and I love them dearly because they just care so deeply for each other and so involved in each other's lives in a really beautiful way.
And what kind of ministries are you all involved in? Like what does ministry in your church look like?
Mhm. So we are run by a small but mighty group of mostly women. And our ministries include our quilters group, which they meet every Monday and they make these beautiful quilts for seniors, for those in. Can you hear my cat right now? Okay. All right. Stella, she's currently deciding to tear up a toy right in front of me because
No,
she.
we I can't hear it. Can you hear it, Josh? No. Keep going.
Okay.
So quilters meeting every Monday.
Quilters meet every Monday, and we have a group that makes PB&J for the unhoused. We have a Bible study that is small and devoted. There's like 4 of us that meet on Zoom every Tuesday.
Oh,
And
cool.
we have a very fantastic choir who just loves getting together and singing praise and praying for each other.
That's
Your
awesome.
choir prays for each other, like as a part of the rehearsals
Yes,
and stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
They just spend time and they check in on each other. Um, they're a beautiful community, sub community in our church.
Yeah. That's lovely.
Was it your church, Courtney, that I saw a comedy show at?
Yes. So I've tried to do a lot more just like letting the community know we exist, because
Mhm.
even though we're on the corner of a main street, people don't know we exist. So I love comedy shows, and there's an organization called Don't Tell Comedy, in which they put secret comedy shows all over the US. So you pay and you know it's going to be in a certain city, but you don't know until right before the secret location. And they'll host them in like workout facilities, bars, people's backyards, and churches. So we have hosted several comedy shows, and it's been really fun to just hear people walk in and they're like, "Oh my gosh, are we allowed to do comedy in here?" Or like, "I didn't even know you existed." I've heard people who said, "I have not stepped into a church in 20 years."
Yeah.
Um, so one, letting people know we're here, but also letting people know that the church is not their grandfather's church, but
Mhm.
one that wants to welcome them, whoever they are, and celebrates who they are, and is able to make fun of themselves and laugh and just spread kindness.
How much of the humor do they poke fun at being at a church? Because I don't. I mean, I went years ago, so I don't remember. I don't really remember the comedy. I just remember the event and how fun it was.
Yeah,
But
I would say 10%. I would say at least 1 or 2 comedians every night will make some comment of them being in a church. Because we have like some giant crosses behind them, so they're like, "Oh my gosh, Jesus is watching me." All these inappropriate jokes. But
Yeah, and it's not necessarily uh G-rated comedy. This is
no,
it's people can say basically whatever they want,
yeah,
right? Like
this
this
is not
is yeah,
Christian humor. These are normal comedians. So
right. I love a good comedy show too. So
oh, same.
that's just we need levity in our lives, right? So how else is your space used at Messiah?
yeah, so this is the thing I am most passionate about. We partner with 3 other churches, all Hispanic, Spanish speaking churches. We also host AA, uh, Polish dancers, Norwegian language class, and a preschool that rents from us. So I love it. I think it's the way that a lot of churches should be going, in which 72% of our income comes from our partnerships with these
Wow.
organizations. So, one thing when I came on, the members of the church said, "We have this young pastor. She's going to bring in all these young families. We're going to be the church we used to be." Well, we know that's
Right.
not true. And
Right.
also, that doesn't reflect our neighborhood necessarily. Our neighborhood's extremely diverse. And so, one thing I've been trying to instill in our members is our calling might not be to fill every pew in our congregation, but our calling might be to provide space for ministries that otherwise could not happen, especially Spanish speaking ministries that our congregation just doesn't have the language capacity for.
Yeah.
How does our ministry look like? How our ministry can look like reflecting in providing space for other ministries to flourish? And I think that's incredibly beautiful. And the partnerships we've been able to develop through it have been remarkable.
Or do you all find yourself, I don't know what the makeup or denominations or whatever, do you guys ever find yourself doing stuff together?
Yes, so they've done a few Spanish speaking services, Spanish and English speaking services. And then a lot of times it's informal of like, hey, we have this toilet that's not working at church. Do you all have anyone from your congregation that could help? Oh, we have a plumber. Okay, great. Or, hey, we need help with this Bible study. What are your thoughts on this? So a lot of it's more informal building, but there is such a camaraderie that this is our space and our ministry space together.
How do you work out a schedule of 3 churches doing worship on Sunday?
So it's 4 total, 3 churches plus us.
Oh, 4. Oh, so yeah, tell me what does a Sunday look like at your
Yeah,
church?
we start at 8 a.m. and go till 6:30 p.m. and we have 2 worship spaces. So
Okay.
sometimes there's 2 spaces happening at one time where 2 groups are worshiping at one time. It's a bit of a dance. Like each group has 30 minutes to tear down and build up for the next group. But we all do it together and lovingly. And many of the members of the other congregations have family members who are part of the other congregations. So it's like one massive family, and it's really fantastic and a beautiful way for us as a larger Redwood City community to come together.
You said that you, I think that's really great. So you're partnering with these churches, but then you said you also make like sandwiches for the unhoused, right? Are there any other ministries that you partner with out in the community, and what does that kind of partnership look like, whether it be ministries or churches or that kind of thing?
Right. So locally, we love supporting Second Harvest, and
Mm.
we do that mostly financially. And then we've worked with Sequoia. I just blanked on their name, but they offer care for older adults. So we've made different care kits, and then we've done cleanups at our local parks. So we've worked with the Parks and Rec department. So we are always kind of bouncing around and trying to see where there is most need. So, for example, with Maui fires, we brought in local Hawaiian musicians and did a Hawaiian Polynesian service in which then all the money collected went through ELCA disaster response for the Maui fires. So
That's
we're always
awesome.
trying to be flexible in order to meet our community's need.
Yeah.
My hope is that we get to a point where, which I stole this shamelessly from now Bishop Dave Nagler, that all of our finances can be from our renters, which keeps everything paid for and the lights on, and that all the money we collect can just be given away. I would
Mhm.
love to get to that point where we're able just to share what we have abundantly, whether that's time, talents, or gifts.
That's really great. And
Hmm.
I think that's I think anytime we can steal good ministry ideas from people, let's steal it from each other. Cause like,
Absolutely.
like let's bring our best ideas forward and let's use them together. It's like we're in this together, right? Uh, um,
Courtney,
uh,
I have to tell you, thank you for saying that, because I am kind of going through that same journey with my congregation. And it's only recently that I've really changed my mind on renting our space to the community. And um it's only been in the last year that I've really said like, okay, let's just see how this goes. And we've really become a community center here, um for parties, for quinceañeras, for stuff like that. And it's great. And it's great, and it's worth the mess, that what I mean, like it's worth the dirt that comes along with it. And it's like worth it. And so I'm glad to know that you paved the way for that. Is there anything that you're like really proud of that your church has done?
Yes. So when I first got here on our campus, we have our older chapel, and that was the original space. And then we have our new sanctuary with classroom space, etc. So our older chapel space, which was built like 60 years ago, had not been updated. So there were not any bathrooms in the area. The flooring, I believe, had like a bit of asbestos underneath it, and it just wasn't welcoming. And one time we hosted a funeral and then had a reception in that space. And one of the community members was like, I need to use the bathroom. And she had mobility issues.
Mm.
And so she's like, I don't think I can make it back to the sanctuary to use the bathroom. And I just remember my heart sunk, and I was like, this is not how we are hospitable. This is not how we, this is not allowing all people to access this space. So I put it into motion, and I'm so glad the congregation agreed to come alongside me. And we built 2 gender inclusive handicapped bathrooms, which I want to give a shout out to St. Francis Lutheran Church for helping and giving grants for that. And then from that space, then we were able to also put new flooring in so it's safe, because there were spots on the floor where we're wonky and moving. So now that space is able to be safe and accessible for all. And I love it being able to show it to our community spaces, as you said, for like birthday parties or different community groups that come in, because it's a space where all feel welcomed and all needs are met.
That's awesome. I think one collaboration that we should talk about is full disclosure. You and I do stuff together every once in a while. I serve Holy Trinity in San Carlos. You're the next city over. And so every once in a while, we will try to get our congregations to do something together. And starting in Advent 1, we're going to start doing our Zoom hold an evening prayer together. And so I really appreciate that partnership and that collaboration that we're able to do.
Yeah, I'm so excited for it. And I think COVID taught us the need for online functions. I mean, I don't know about you all, but a lot of my members aren't comfortable driving at night. And so hosting an evening Advent service in person just felt like a waste. So it's like, wait, how can we make this a place where their needs are met? Let's just have it on Zoom. So, and then it gives us an opportunity to, again, partner with other churches.
For sure.
I think our language is important. Pastor Jeremy, you mentioned a lot about shifting your idea with renters. I think it's shifting your language from renters and landlords to partners. I think if you shift that language, then the mindset changes, that this is our shared ministry together, in the same way that we're able to partner with Bible study and worship together.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you.
You could tell Joe was like, I'm going to change the way I talk about this.
Well, hell yeah, I'm going to change the way I talk about it now. That was brilliant. Why haven't I been doing that all along? You know?
Yeah, and I think it helps your congregants get on board too, right? These are mission partners. These aren't renters. These are mission partners that we can further ministry together. So when you host a quinceañera, who knows, down the line, if they need pastoral care, they might reach out to you all because they remembered that welcoming church that celebrated them doing a really important milestone in their family's life. So
absolutely.
One of the things we just did recently, thanks to my awesome wife, is NaNoWriMo, the National Novel Writing Month, started in November, and we hosted a kickoff at the congregation from them. And so they met for a kickoff in our hall. And one of the things, my wife had a great idea. She's like, let's put our welcoming statement and then join us for worship at 10:30, and let's just put it on the walls right in front of the bathroom. And she said so many people, like, they'd come up, they'd look at it, they'd wait for the bathroom, and then they'd go in. And we host a lot of recitals here because we have a really nice piano. And so we host these recitals, and I noticed people doing the same thing with this. So it's like we're trying to utilize our space to also say, like, this is who we are, and like, let's welcome people. which is not something we've done before. And why haven't we done that before? I don't know. Just haven't done it. So
Yeah.
I think it's really cool to utilize space in that way, and that you all do that is cool.
Just, yeah, as you said, little signaling, like an easy sign that took you 1 minute to make on your computer, like so simple.
Right. Right. Do you know, is there any other places that you do ministry that you think like, oh, collaboration would be really great in this area?
Probably Instagram. So I run all of our church's social media, partly because I love it and I'm passionate about it, and partly because I'm the one who has any sort of technological skills in that
Yeah.
area. And I'm really inspired by some of these more online ministries, and even like people will make grids or swipe as you swipe through of prayers for folks. And so that's a really beautiful way in which I'm filled up personally. And I'm wondering how much more we can do collaboratively with that.
That's cool. It's really
Yeah.
great.
Well,
I
well,
look at
you'll have to tune in because I'm hoping to have Catherine Slava on the podcast because I want her to talk about that stuff.
I was literally just going to say at St. John's, partially because of her, I love their TikToks. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
that's such a cool tool, in which, again, to show that church is not scary, that church can be fun and playful and welcoming to all.
Right, right. Mm.
So I will definitely be tuning in because I think she has a wealth of knowledge and is such a blessing for our synod.
We
Yeah.
haven't asked her yet. Catherine, come on the podcast. We want you. All right. So this we're getting to our last couple of questions, but okay, this is how would you explain the gospel? How would you just what is the gospel for you?
Oh my gosh. The gospel is trusting that you are not alone and are part of a greater story than yourself, and that you have a God who loves you unconditionally and wants to celebrate who you are, and as a response to that, share that love with neighbors and creation.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Amen.
That's amen to that.
Amen. Um, is there anything that you were hoping we'd talk about before you came on? Like,
No,
did we miss anything? Is there anything else you want to?
I feel like you all are so brilliant at making such great questions. So thank you for your roles as host and facilitators in this conversation.
Well, thank you for that. We always have 10 questions that we end every one of our interviews with. And so are you ready?
Ready.
All right. Which food could you eat every day?
Grilled cheese sandwich.
What's your favorite movie genre?
Action.
Salty, sweet, or savory?
Sweet.
In addition to the Bible, which book would you want with you on a deserted island?
Oh. Harry Potter. The seventh book. I had to pick one. I mean, there's 7 books.
Right. What fills your cup?
My family.
What depletes your cup?
Injustice.
What's your favorite holy place?
My couch.
What's one piece of good advice that you've been given?
Set boundaries. They are a form of love.
What does rest look like for you?
Reality television.
And on that last day, when you enter heaven, what do you hope God will say to you?
Welcome in.
Everybody, this has been the Reverend Courtney Geibert. Thank you so much.
Thank you for hosting me and your ministry here, because this is a great avenue in which I am excited to see how God continues to move in both of you and in this ministry together. So thank you.
This has been the Serrano Brothers Podcast. Thanks for listening.